What's up, guys, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A lot to get into after what was a very, very long and very, very exciting and exhausting game. So I imagine you guys had a ton of questions, so let's just jump into them. First question of the day comes from Lion Pride, who says, "Hey Q, is there anyone in this year's draft or free agency that can be Myles Garrett's running mate or that can help our secondary be good?" I imagine there's got to be somebody available to help the secondary. This draft seems to have a lot of DBs, but not a lot of safeties. So that's going to be an interesting pickle the Browns are going to find themselves. Again, safety play is hard to find, and when you can find it, it's very expensive. It's one of the more, I don't want to say underrated things, but between the people who kind of talk about like free agency and cap numbers, it's more underrated how much money goes into safeties than people talk about in kind of like a normal dialogue. So that is something that has to be considered. Also, yeah, Grant Delpit come back from that Achilles injury. Do you go all in with him being kind of the fix when you know you're probably not going to see much of him in the pre-camp period up until probably like 2 weeks before 2021 kickoff? That's a risky thing to do, but you did invest a second-round pick in him, and he's much better of a prospect than anybody who comes out at the safety position in the 2021 draft. As far as DBs go, you know, you can go that route, but I don't think your defensive backs are necessarily terrible. I think Denzel Ward and Terrence Mitchell are fine. So now you're looking at defensive ends, and I don't know what the deal is there. I got to watch the tape when it comes to defensive ends, and that is something I have not done because I'm watching, 2020 tape for the Browns. Like, we're still in the thick of it, obviously in our driver's seat for the Browns' playoff position, so I have not focused on the draft. Once that time comes, we will have plenty of time to get to that, but, for once, as a Browns fan, I'll wait to that when it comes. You know what I mean? This next question comes from Joshua B, who says, with Sendejo likely being out the next 2 games, do you think we start seeing Tedrick Thompson emerge, or are we going to see Sheldrick Redwine? Keep up the great videos, by the way. Probably going to be Redwine. Tedrick Thompson is a strong safety. And, sometimes those positions can be interchangeable in the Stefanski system. They're just not. Not the Stefanski system, but in the Joe Wood system, it doesn't seem like they are because Sendejo has seen a majority of snaps. So, yeah, I hate to break it to a lot of Browns fans. I know people have been begging Sendejo to be cut or all this ridiculous stuff. I know a lot of people don't actually mean. But Sendejo plays a ton of snaps for a reason, and that is because there's not a lot of depth behind him, So we'll see what it's like. This secondary just can't afford to have injury after injury happen to it. Denzel Ward has to get healthy. Ronnie Harrison has to get healthy. Andrew Sendejo has to get healthy. All those guys have to be healthy for the Browns to have the best shot in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter who comes in to replace who. We can't afford to keep taking these injuries in the secondary, especially at the safety position where we're so injury riddled at already. Already losing our top 2 starters in Ronnie Harrison and Grant Delpit. Now down Andrew Sendejo. Is just not great. Next question comes from Nick Townsend, who says, with our starter at DB being our slot corner, Kevin Johnson, assuming Ward, Greedy, Delpit, Harrison would start by default, at what point do you get the defensive coordinator a pass for games like the last one on Monday versus Baltimore? Look, I know Baltimore's offense has been up and down, but it seems like they hit their rhythm in that Dallas game, and that has carried over to the Cleveland game. So you have Baltimore playing as well as they have offensively all season. And you have that Browns defense being as vulnerable as they've been all season. Again, you're out pretty much everybody in that secondary. So it wasn't a full deck of cards you were playing with in the secondary. So this was something that was waiting to happen. It showed in Tennessee that it could happen, and then Baltimore kind of blew that wide open. So we need to get healthy. There's no other way around it. The Browns need to get healthy in that secondary position, or else things are going to get bad against teams that can move the ball in the secondary area. The big problem with Lamar Jackson when it comes to trying to contain him, I'll get to this in a later question, is When Denzel's not out there, when Greedy's not out there, and you just got Kevin Johnson and MJ Stewart out, you have so much less speed on the defensive side of the ball that some of those pursuit angles that are normally tackles, Lamar's just running through them. The next question comes from Jimmy Mayer, who says, if you were Andrew Berry, do you pick up any of the players to help support the secondary? I have a feeling they're going to have a rough ride in the playoffs. You don't need to pick up players. Again, you just need to get healthy. I know a lot of people want to focus on the secondary, and the secondary stinks, and there's not much we can do about that right now. The people who can help us are injured, and that's the only thing that's going to help us. There's nobody on the street right now that's going to help us. I heard people say, Clinton Dix. He got cut from the Cowboys secondary. I don't think we want anything to do with that. I know Tedrick Thompson was a starter with the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's also when they were just as bad defending the pass as the Cleveland Browns are this season. So, no, there's no solution out there. Maybe Earl Thomas could have been a solution, but it's way past the time to bring in Earl Thomas. That would have involved kind of switching up the whole defense and kind of adjusting it to fit Earl Thomas's skill set. We're way past that point now. We just need guys to get healthy. When guys get healthy, we need guys to play roles, and we need more bodies out there. That secondary is just hurting a lot. A lot of people out. Just look at the inactive list. Look at the injured reserve list and just see how many defensive backs are on it, and you see the main problem with the defense right there. It's the injured reserve list. It's the deactive list. It's everybody in that secondary who has unfortunately got it hurting. It just sucks that side of the ball, that unit got the injury bug. But the only cure for the injury bug is to get back healthy. There's really nothing else you can do there. And this question comes from Giants Nation, who should be interesting this week, who says, what's up, Quincy? Good game last night. Do you know you guys are losing on Sunday? But anyways, my question is, do you think Baker and Lamar stamped their name as two faces in the NFL last night? Yeah, most definitely. I think Lamar already stamped his face as a face of the NFL. I mean, he won the MVP last year. Baker is putting his name up there as a franchise quarterback. Now, face of the NFL, it's going a little bit too far. Baker's got to do some things in the playoffs before he can be a face of the NFL, since he does not have the individual achievement that Lamar has. He's going to have to put together a better season, an overall season. He has some things he has to hit, but he's well on his way. These two, this rivalry, Baker, Lamar, Browns, Ravens, however you want to break it down, I promise you not a single one of these games next year will be played at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. These will be either 4:15, 8 o'clock starts. There's no way in the world these two are ever going to play on local syndicated CBS television ever again. That's just period. This question comes from Venom and Friends, who says, what are the steps that the Browns have to take to make the playoffs? I think they just have to win. Everybody just take a deep breath. Just win a couple. If you win both these games in New York, you're pretty much in. Like, you haven't mathematically clinched yet, but you're pretty much in. You would have a decent AFC conference record. You would have a 11-5 overall record. And with an 11-5 record, it would be extremely hard to miss the playoffs with an 11-5 record when there's 7 seeds. And Miami has the schedule that they have. The Raiders have the schedule that they have. The Colts and the Titans both have to play each other, and you have tiebreakers over the Colts, Titans. I believe the Dolphins, no longer, you don't have that tiebreaker over the Ravens since they beat you twice. It does not go to conference record at that point. So that one does hurt, but you get 11 games, you'll be in the playoffs. What seed? I don't know. What seed are you going to want? I don't know. But win 11 games, you'll definitely be in the playoffs. That's what they need to do. Maybe even win 12 games to secure the 5 seed if the 5 seed is a matchup that you feel really good about. So those are the two things the Browns have to do. Just win. Just win. The games are on the table. They have some winnable games ahead of them. I do think that the Giants is a game that you can win. The Jets is a game you better win. And that Steelers game is a game that you're going to really want to win as well. Pittsburgh's going to probably be playing for something at that point too. So it's going to be interesting to see how things line up, but all the Browns got to do, win. They got to win. That's all. The next question comes from Tilted, who says, I watch a lot of football games, and no other QB in the league seems to struggle so badly with intentional grounding is Baker. I know that one call was bad, but it seems that it happens every game. Why? It's a combination of a couple of things here. One, I think Baker just gets a lot of calls that are just bad when it comes to intentional grounding, or pretty questionable when it comes to intentional grounding, as far as like who's an eligible receiver, what's considered out the box. Intentional grounding is a very, what do they call it? Subjective call, where it's really up to what the line judge feels like is throwing out of his sack, essentially. Now, one of the reasons Baker gets a lot of intentional groundings is scheme, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. The other reason is because of his height and stature, and I don't mean that because he can't see anybody to throw it out. I say that because if you're the line judge, you're judging intentional grounding. You see Josh Allen wrapped up by three guys, and then he just kind of throws the ball out of bounds. You're going to think, well, he might have been able to make a pass there. He might have been able to make a throw there because he's so big. You know he's not going to get taken to the ground. You're going to be more lenient when it comes to giving him intentional grounding. When it comes to Baker Mayfield at 6 foot, 215, 220, people think once you got a hold of him, if he gets rid of the ball, your first instinct is that intentional grounding? And that makes a huge difference because, remember, intentional grounding is more of a subjective call than anything else in football. Not anything, but most things in football. Another reason is the scheme, right? Kevin Stefanski does a lot of naked bootlegs, a lot of cross-field things. A lot of the times, all the wide receivers are on one side of the field, and Baker Mayfield is on the opposite side of the field by design. So if he does get into trouble, it's a 20-yard throw across the field to get that out of bounds and not be intentional grounding, or it's a 10-yard throw on the other side. A lot of the times also what happens is that it is a naked bootleg. Baker does throw it out of bounds near his running back, but since everybody is way on the other side of the field, Baker doesn't get the benefit of the doubt on that call. They don't see the running back. It's happened a couple of times, or Jarvis, when sometimes they put him out there in the flat and, he gets the flag. So it's a number of things. I'm not overly concerned about it. If Baker Mayfield's biggest flaw in 2020 is intentional grounding, you are absolutely fine. Like, you're in a good place. But for those of you who are wondering, that's at least my theory on why it happens. This next question comes from Evo B, who says, I believe it was a mistake by Baker and Stefanski to leave just a minute on the clock. I remember Baker saying something about the Bengals, minute on the clock. When Baker snapped the ball to throw the touchdown, there were 24 seconds left on the play clock, of course. Do you think and agree? If so, do you think this is something that they can correct in the future? Look, guys, look. That kind of thing is something that you can only do knowing that you score that touchdown, right? Like, you can only worry about if you left too much time to score after you scored. Quite frankly, when you're on the 40-yard line, you got a minute and 30 left. You're not going to run down your own 24-second clock to take more time off the clock when you don't even know if you're going to score. At that point, like, the Browns weren't within the 5-yard line in that drive. They scored from like the 25 or the 20 on a Kareem Hunt screen pass. Like, they were trying to not go in chunks, but they just got the chunks. And when you're down, you can't refuse to score, especially when you're going. And guys, this is not the Dallas Cowboys. This is the Baltimore Ravens. They have the number 3 red zone defense in the NFL. You're not going to take a knee at the 1-yard line and just say, hey, let's try to kill this clock and then score. You cannot play games like that when you go against the Baltimore Ravens. I know when you're looking at it from behind, you're like, well, we could have milked the clock and still scored. That is no guarantee that you would have been able to milk the clock and still score. When you're down against a good team and a good defense, you got to take the score that you can get and hope your defense should be able to defend 20 yards for a minute when a team has one timeout. So much of the blames for some people has somehow went to like the clock management for that drive, when the obvious thing to point to is the defense could have kept them out of field goal range. It was entirely possible. They just did not want to cover Mark Andrews, and at one point put MJ Stewart on Mark Andrews in a critical point of the game. That's the error. That's where it went wrong. Not because you scored too fast. When you're down against Baltimore, you score when you can score. You can't play it cute. You can't. That's Freddie Kitchens stuff. When you try to play it cute with how fast you score when you're not even sure you can score, that's how you end up just not scoring. So, no, you got to take the points when you can get the points, and your defense has to be able to make those stops. They had to make the stop on the drive before that, but they didn't make the stops. Like, it's the defense made mistakes, did not play well enough for you to win, and that's what happened. It has nothing to do with if Baker would have took more time off the clock for that. Because what do you think would have happened if they would have like milked it and say, like, let's say they score, right, and it's a tie football game? Well, if Baltimore wins the toss, you're screwed anyway because more than likely they're going to score. That's what they did all game. So I'm just struggling to see what is the difference at that point. So, you know, I get people's frustration. It's really revisionist, but also keep in mind that while the game's going, you don't have the knowledge of knowing that you score. And even if you did, it's not a guarantee that you're going to score just because you take it slower. The next question comes from Josh Gordon, who says, what do you think of our secondary's possibility to being healthy for the rest of the season? Will that affect us? If they don't get healthy, it's definitely going to affect you. I think Tennessee's going to come at you with a different approach. They're going to throw up more. They learned that in the second half. Baltimore, they know how to play you. Pittsburgh, they can play you like that. The Chiefs, they can play you like that. So all the teams that you're going to probably face, other than like the Colts, can really attack you from that area. So you got to get better in that area. And, you know, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to get healthy. If this team wants to make an actual run in the playoffs, Denzel Ward and Ronnie Harrison have to be available. But that's it for the questions this week, guys. Thank you guys for asking them. Again, guys, have a great day. Have a good night.